Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 530 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger.
And I'm Jeanelle Slade, a Laurel murder victim positively identified today. But tonight, still no suspects in custody.
Sheriff Mike Linder says the medical examiner determined the body found east of Laurel Wednesday night is that of missing woman 57-year-old Lori Bray.
Although another step forward, that information and no suspect in custody is not easing the minds of some Laurel residents.
Now, Bray was last seen leaving the Cedar Ridge Casino on South First Avenue in Laurel around 12:30 Tuesday morning. Her vehicle was found later that morning at the intersection of Buffalo Trail Road and Laurel Airport Road near the Yellowstone National Cemetery. Her body then discovered Wednesday night about 2 miles away near the intersection of Yard Office Road and Ridge Drive.
Now, we've heard from several people in the community concerned there could be a killer walking the streets of Laurel. Well, Sheriff Linder tells me if detectives had enough evidence, they would have someone in custody. But regardless, that doesn't mean you can ever let your guard down. Linder says whether the killer is a local or someone passing through town, Laurel has its fair share of crime, and you always need to remain vigilant of your surroundings. When you leave work, leave with someone else or have someone watch you get into your car. Now, because this is an ongoing investigation, authorities are not releasing how Bray died. The sheriff also tells me sometimes publicly releasing the cause of death brings forward false leads and confessions from people who are not tied to the crime.
An update to the sad case out of Butte where a 5-month-old girl was found dead under her unconscious mother last week.
The autopsy has not yet been completed, but more details are emerging about what happened before police discovered the vehicle. Now, the parents of the little girl were in the process of moving out of their Butte home when they started to argue.
Now, police say it was not physical, but the mother left the home with their 2 children, the baby and a 2-year-old boy. Police are waiting for a final report until they determine whether to file charges.
First Lady Melania Trump didn't show up in Yellowstone National Park today.
That's because her visit was canceled at the last minute. The Secret Service tells MTN News the weather is the reason. A snowstorm rolled into the park around 9 this morning. It did not stop the First Lady's motorcade from going to Grand Teton National Park, where she appeared this morning, but it did threaten to ground her plane in West Yellowstone.
The First Lady planned to encourage school children to spend more time in the outdoors and visit America's national parks as part of her Be Best initiative.
All right, turning to the weather now. Snow may have canceled the First Lady's trip, but right now the Beartooth Highway is open there at the Montana state line. Does look like we might get some snow this weekend, though.
Yeah, I think that could be the case. But let me show you what's going to happen. Here's the Beartooth Pass. It was closed, but now they have decided to open it. And as you see, it has been open now. But now here's the thing. It's only going to be open for a little while longer, for about another 6 or 7 days. And then they're going to close it down for the season. And of course, you cannot go all the way to Yellowstone Park. This is good at Vista Point all the way up to the Montana state line. It is open, but they are starting to get a little snow up there today. Take a look. Here's a 3D Doppler radar. You can see where the Bozeman passes, the Beartooth passes, and you can see we're still getting a little bit of light snow up there in the higher elevations, and then tomorrow looks like a little more snow may start making its way into that area. So I think sometime around Saturday afternoon, we could start to see some scattered snow showers up in the pass. But we'll see what happens. In the meantime, you got a little window you can get through there and go up in the pass, at least to go up to the Wyoming state line. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. Well, the Montana Lottery says it's now time for the public to weigh in on its proposed rules for future state gambling. The proposal states anyone wishing to place bets would have to establish a sports wagering account with the Montana Lottery. Now, the accounts would be managed through electronic devices and would allow players to participate in licensed facilities. Steps to encourage responsible gambling, such as including deposit and spending limits, are also being considered. Now, the proposed rules would open sports wagering to any business in Montana that is licensed by the lottery or is managed by or owned by someone with a gambling operator license. Now, the state estimates there are currently 1,400 licensed operators who could apply. Sports betting will not be allowed if an owner has a felony or a gambling-related offense or has financial ties to gaming suppliers. This is a one-time non-refundable application fee of $50. Now, the public comment period will be open for a minimum of 30 days. A public hearing is planned for October 28th at the Montana Lottery headquarters in Helena.
Montana Governor Steve Bullock still struggling to pick up ground in the polls and in his presidential campaign coffers. According to CNN, Bullock raised nearly $2.3 million in the third fundraising quarter of this year, far down the list of Democrats, but not at the bottom by any means. The campaign also improved its fundraising numbers from the second quarter and doubled its number of individual contributions. Bullock has vowed to stay in the race for now, with 4 months to go until the Iowa caucus. Now, Bernie Sanders narrowly edged Elizabeth Warren to lead the field for fundraising in the third quarter for the Democrats, with Pete Buttigieg third and Joe Biden fourth. Some good news for the city of Williston, North Dakota. As we told you last night, this city is set to open its brand new airport.
Williston Basin International takes flight in just 6 days. Q2's Jay Cohn brings us a closer look. Jay.
Well, Jeanelle, Russ, it's not every day that a brand new airport opens in the country. In fact, next week's opening of the new Williston Basin International Airport will mark the first new major airport in the U.S. since Denver International opened its gates back in 1995.
The XWA project in Williston has been under construction since 2016. The $275 million facility sits on 1,600 acres, 10 miles northwest of Williston. As the nearby Bakken oil fields boomed, the city's old airport found itself overwhelmed. In fact, when it was remodeled in 2005, the terminal was designed to handle up to 10,000 passenger boardings a year. But by 2014, that number had topped 120,000, more than 10 times the projections. The new facility features its own brewery restaurant, executive lounges for both passengers and crews, and a private terminal designed specifically for flights handling oil labor crew changes. And the new wider, longer runways can also accommodate larger planes, a big improvement over the smaller regional jets that serve Williston today.
We're looking forward to the next 20 or 30 years of air service possibly expanding.
As Billings embarks on remodeling the terminal at Logan Field, Aviation Director Kevin Plone says he's been keeping a watchful eye on the Williston project.
You got to build all that infrastructure underneath it and get all the lighting and all that, so it's an expensive deal. And then to build a brand new terminal from scratch and then try to move everybody over, that's a challenge, absolutely a challenge. I'm glad it's them and not me.
Plone has his hands full here, expanding the Billings concourse with the Magic City's future aviation growth in mind.
This concourse now, instead of having the 5 gates that we have now, we'll have 8. And the design is built so that you could just add on to the ends very easily and get up to at least 12 gates. So we will be well staged for the future growth of Billings, no matter if it's slow or fast.
Now, whether or not the new Williston Airport might result in more flights to and from Billings, well, Plone tells me that's a possibility, but one that will be driven by passenger demand. And as for the Billings Remodeling Airport project, well, the first phase got underway last week. That involves moving the current deli and building a temporary gate underneath the B concourse. The entire $55 million project here in Billings is due for completion by mid-2023. Jeanelle.
All right, thanks so much, Jay. Well, students at the Billings Career Center can now take their education to the next level thanks to a new piece of medical equipment. St. Vincent Healthcare presented a $10,000 check on behalf of the Nellis Family Continuing Education Endowment today to help buy a high-fidelity simulated mannequin for the biomedical education program. The mannequin, named HAL, is intended to encourage work-based learning through physiological responses and hands-on lessons. Now, HAL simulates breathing, cardiac and respiratory functions, response to medication, and is a tool for testing vital signs.
Gives the students an opportunity to think about how we talk about patients, how we talk to patients, how we consider the patient's confidentiality and privacy and anxieties and fears, as well as their health and wellness and their illness. And so it's really tuned them in to think about how to be more attentive to caring and compassion and patient needs.
Now, the Career Center credits the entire Billings medical corridor for the medical equipment and supplies for its very own operating room, and now the high-fidelity mannequin.
Montana education leaders say there has been little change this year in elementary school students' math and English test scores. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian takes a closer look at this year's statewide test results.
This week, the Montana Office of Public Instruction announced the results of the statewide Smarter Balanced Assessment for the 2018-2019 school year. The data showed mixed results and relatively small changes compared to the 2017-2018 school year. For 3rd through 5th grade, the number of students with at least proficient English language arts scores was down more than half a point from the year before, while in math, the percentage of proficient students rose slightly. In 6th through 8th grade, proficiency rates were up slightly in both English language arts and math. State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Elsie Arnson, said in a statement that the results will help leaders identify areas where they can work to support improvement. She said OPI is committed to working with schools to move the needle on student achievement. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Thanks so much, Jonathan.
Well, there's more news from across our state coming up tonight on the 9 o'clock news.
Yes, including music to your ears. A teen prodigy takes center stage with the Great Falls Symphony. Join me for that story and more on your 9 o'clock news on the CW.
But first on tonight's 5:30 news, competitors ready to rock and roll at a bouldering competition this weekend. We'll give you details on that.
And in sports, Scott, here's from your latest State A champs. Did Laurel's guys three-peat or did Billings Central rip it away?
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 news on Q2, Montana's news leader.